If you could go back in time, would you do it? I mean, I obviously would. You'd have ample opportunities to get rich or redo important life choices. But when this power is limited to only going back 5 minutes at a time, you'd almost think it's useless. And it probably is, unless you're a visual novel protagonist. Sawatari Rei, next in line to inherit his family's large corporation, one day comes across a mysterious golden pocket watch before heading to school. Then, like any good anime, he gets Charcooned. Normally, that would be the end of it, or the start of a good zombie anime, but when the pocket watch broke, it sent him back in time, to which he then meets the god of time, Kronos, or goddess of time, my bad. He henceforth uses the ability for trivial things, like making money off of scratch tickets or simply confessing to girls. His bout of misfortune is not over, however, as after school he finds a girl had jumped off the roof and subsequently splattered against the ground. Rewinding time, he finds a shy and brilliant though terribly unlucky girl named Miu about to confess to his best friend. And that's where it all begins. For ChronoClock, anyway, a purple software moge that begins with the aforementioned premise. Now you may be thinking, ugh, not another generic moge with a slight twist that isn't utilized in any meaningful way. And whilst you'd end up being right, you snarky little smartass you, I nonetheless ended up enjoying myself while reading ChronoClock. But only for some of the routes, two in particular, because the route quality is very wishy-washy here. And whilst I'd love to jump right into explaining why, I'll give you a rundown of the common route and the characters beforehand. In saying that, however, there isn't much to say about the common route. The common route serves as a simple introduction to each of the heroines and not much more, with Rei interacting with them at school, uptown, or in his home. It's extremely short, which is a good thing, especially for moage such as ChronoClock, because while you and I may enjoy a school slice of life from time to time, it gets old after about the 40th visual novel. I want to see some time travel shenanigans, goddammit. The VNDB says he could even save the world, but he shouldn't need to do anything like that. Well, why the fuck shouldn't he? The ominous wording makes you think he will need to save the world, so ruin the world and make him fix it. There's still plenty of time to moe when saving the world, isn't there? But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'd like to talk a little more about Rei before we talk about the heroines. Rei is about what you'd expect from a moage protagonist, for better or for worse. His main defining trait is his dedication to helping other people with his power, rather than using it for his own personal gain. This dedication is foolhardy but admirable. Admittedly though, I feel that's like a default trait of any good guy protagonist anyway, and he's not really remarkable in any other way. Rei's sister, Sawatari Michiru, is, in no better words to describe it, a complete brocon. She is a Yamato Nadeshiko through and through, and has been heavily reliant on her brother since she went blind as a child. Whilst she prides herself on caring about Rei and nothing else, she can be talented and devious in unexpected ways. Ando Misaki, being a part of the second wealthiest family in the region behind the Sawatari family, is very competitive with Rei in what could be described as the most stereotypical tsundere a tsundere. She believes success comes from due diligence and doesn't let anyone get in the way of her goals. Dorothy Davenport, or simply DD for short, is a British foreign exchange student who comes to live with the Sawataris as a maid. Overly friendly, overly loud, and overly otaku are a good way to describe her, but if you need another way to describe her, another fucking blonde foreigner, goddammit. Jonochi Makoto is an old-fashioned, outgoing girl, and on the outside is relatively normal, if not a bit tomboyish. But she is also the daughter of a prominent family, a family that she keeps hidden, due to it being the Yakuza. So add sharp-tongued and strong to an overpowered degree on her trait list. Despite this, Makoto is probably the most sensical girl in ChronoClock. That covers the main heroines. Miu and Kronos, dubbed Crow, are present in each route, but are pretty much side characters, with Miu cheering on Rei's love escapades after he had helped her with her own in the prologue, and Crow nagging the protagonist and looking down on the trifles of humanity, only sometimes being helpful when the plot needs it. ChronoClock's routes are inconsistent and frustrating to read. I didn't dislike any of them to the extent that it ruined the whole experience for me, but I never felt overly captivated at any point either. The best scenes in the game, in my opinion, that being the end of Michiru's route and the climax of Crow's route, drew me in and don't make me regret playing ChronoClock, but I felt there was a lot of missed potential. Michiru's route is glorified babysitting, which pays off emotionally later at the cost of any real romantic development. Though I suppose you could argue the romantic development is predisposed given the relationship of the characters, but that doesn't make for great moage. Michiru is still the best character in the game, so all is forgiven, but I see a reality where her route is a 10, and this just isn't it. The twists were predictable. Misaki's route, on the other hand, was decent for romance, but I didn't feel connected to her goal at all. Her route is the most normal, moage-esque route. She's a stock tsundere who didn't end up looking like a complete failure in the finale of her route, only thanks to Michiru. Another point to Michiru. Makoto's route brings in an interesting narrative relating directly to Rei's pocket watch at the cost of Makoto's characterization, and they do nothing with the Yakuza thing either, which was the only reason I was interested in her character to begin with. This route has the most interesting use of time travel, but not in the way you'd expect. Dee Dee's route is slow and uninteresting, but concludes nicely. Even if you like your character, you'll probably be disappointed to find the end of her route to be the only satisfying bit. Again, the twists were predictable. Crow has a route, and being the true route, you can expect it to be the best in the game. Not much else I can say to avoid spoilers though. I'll leave it up for you to figure out if Miu has a route or not, but all I can say on that matter is sometimes it's better not to know. Disappointing is the best way to describe ChronoClock. I want to say before I conclude my thoughts on the plot that I still rate this visual novel 7.5 out of 10. I can objectively say that this moage is pretty good if you can live with certain aspects and flaws in the story. The fact of the matter is my expectations were set too high, and thus I felt disappointed at many points. The time travel aspect of the story is pointless. It gets disabled in one route, unusable in another route, has no use in two other routes, and only helps during one route. If the author was not planning on using the time travel aspect of this moage that's supposed to be focused on a time travel aspect, then what's the point? Even when Rei uses it to stop a fatal accident from occurring, the only narrative purpose this has, barring reader suspense, should be growth for Rei himself, which doesn't really happen. I would have liked to see more situations where his limited time travel couldn't fix a situation because it could have led to a growth in Rei's character, akin to Steins Gate, but this is just a moage, so maybe I am thinking too hard here. I like ChronoClock, but you could have taken Chrono's clock out of ChronoClock and you'd have pretty much the same visual novel. The soundtrack is good, but I've played so many visual novels that I can't say it's anything exceptional either. Your favorite soundtrack will probably be your favorite character's theme, or one of the suspenseful climax pieces. My favorite was, of course, Michiru's theme. The CGs are fantastic looking, and thankfully non-repetitive. CGs that are just glorified character sprites are unsatisfying, and thankfully that isn't an issue here. The sprites themselves aren't that unique, besides Michiru's, which again are clearly the best, but they all look good nonetheless. I love that you can see what scene you are in from the backlog, and if you click on an earlier scene, you'll get a short summary and the ability to jump right to it. Convenient features like this always get the thumbs up from me, but I would have appreciated it to be a dedicated route chart menu so I could jump to one route's scene at will. You know, for when I get Michiru withdrawals. ChronoClock is a decent moage, despite it doing pretty much nothing with its initial premise. It's one of those visual novels I enjoyed but wouldn't recommend because I absolutely know I am biased due to how much I love one character. But if you can pick it up on sale, I'd say go for it and see what happens. I mean, if you don't like it, you can just turn back time, right?